Hello everyone, Derek's Damn Toys, and we are back with another action figure review. As today we've got a 3-in-1, as we've got the Wyatt 6 3-pack, the final piece I need, at least for right now, to complete the Wyatt 6. And well, of course I could eventually go out and get like more Bray Wyatt figures and stuff like that, just complete my Wyatt collection overall, but these are a really nice piece to have, at least in the box. We don't know how they articulate, how they move around and stuff and of that nature, so we'll have to get into that once we get there. But will I say, this box is fucking amazing. Excuse my French, but we've got this nice Elite Collections picture on the side. We've got this very beautiful image on the back of the box here. I'm trying to get it in frame while also holding it so the ropes aren't like blocking it. If you really want to read this thing here, feel free to pause that up so you can read it. That's probably going to be the best, best you're going to get it. But hey, we also got the 3 on the side here. We've got the buzzard with the 6 logo on top here with the weird like vines and stuff like that. This is just a really, really neatly designed box all around. Of course, got this off of the Walmart website. I ordered it a couple of days before the pre-order was done, and it still didn't arrive on time. Of course, I live in a fairly shitty weathered area, so that probably played a part into that. But as far as the weather goes, hopefully it stays a bit better today, as I do work later. But it is like 6:30 in the morning, so I hope I'm not being like super duper loud because I have neighbors and shit of that nature. But I wanted to get this done, so then that way I'm not worrying about it too much before I go to bed for work. And well, with all that being said, why don't I bust out the trusty knife here, and we can get into this action figure review now, shall we? Alrighty, you guys, now that we've got all 3 of the figures out of the plastic prison, we can go over each figure individually. And of course, normally I would go over the accessories first. My tongue got a little twisted there, but honestly, since not all 3 of the figures get accessories, I'm just gonna go over the accessories while I go over each individual figure. But first and foremost, I would just like to point out, hopefully Nikki Cross, well, she fell, but look at the amazing detail on the back of the box here for this Wyatt 6 3-pack. Truly amazing stuff here, in my opinion, I can't lie. I love when they do the exclusive elaborate packages and stuff like that. It really makes these 3-packs a bit more desirable, especially when they're kind of in this form. Because let's be honest, the NWO 3-pack, probably not your go-to pickup, right? But the box kind of makes it a bit more intriguing, at least for me as a collector. Because I don't know if you can tell by my arena setup, but you know what? Let's kind of just adjust the tripod here a little bit if we can. Just give you a nice little overshotting view of my arena. I like to utilize my action figure boxes for my setup here, especially the exclusive boxes. Hey, I even got a PS5 box right there, showing you guys that I break my bank account every time for things I love. But that's not why we're here, right? Why we're here is for these 3 figures, obviously. And well, first and foremost, since she doesn't have any accessories, why don't we go over the Nikki Cross figure first? And honestly, I will say, despite everything you may think when it comes to this Nikki Cross, this is actually really, really damn cool. I just love the way this looks. Even if this skirt is going to kind of hinder articulation, which, trust me, it will. It may be rubber, but it is not going to pose well, so don't expect her to be doing her cross-leg pose here or anything. But maybe what you could do is take some scissors or something, maybe snip a little piece up here, snip a little piece up here, or maybe even in the back too, and that'll help this figure as far as articulation goes, at least I would assume. That, or maybe if you can find someone who's really cool and knows how to do it, maybe you could find someone who can make a cloth like skirt piece here for this Nikki Cross, and this will end up articulating really well. But first and foremost, I do want to go over this head scan, which looks so damn menacing, I'm not gonna lie. Like, from the black hair to the really just creepy, like, grudge looking mask. You lift up the hair, there's some nice details underneath the hair too that you don't just casually see. So they actually took their time with this head scan and stuff, so I can appreciate the nice little bits of detail here, like the little red dry brushing here on the cream colored dress, kind of making it look like it's been stained with some blood or something like that. She is on pin-in knees, so the knees will definitely move smooth as butter. She's got upper thigh articulation and all the good jazz from an elite. It's just this skirt hinders so much articulation. It's insane, it really is. I will say though, at least it does pose well for the most part everywhere else. As well, besides the black boots, I pretty much described everything you're gonna get here. And well, I do want to check one thing while we're here on the camera. Is this a separate sculpt from the wrist itself? I only wonder this because it feels like it. But, oh, it actually is. So, you know, you could actually maybe even kind of do something a little neat here where, ooh, hitting the tripod now, where you take the hands off and maybe you put them back on without the sleeves, and you could kind of work around with an alternative look here maybe. I only put it like that because I feel like that don't actually look all that terrible. At least for me it don't. But of course I'm going to put the gauntlets and stuff back on. It was just more or less me showing off the fact that these are a separate sculpt from the figure. So do with that with what you will. But it's neat nonetheless. I hope I'm putting these on the right sides, because I don't know. I really don't. I think I did. If I didn't, I might have put it on backwards. I don't know. Beats me. I'm not Mattel. I'll just have to look the camera back over and see if I mess something up here as far as that goes. But when it comes down to it, the articulation here is pretty well. You know, you've got the upper diaphragm rotation, you've got the head scan posability and stuff, even though the hair definitely hinders some of that. That's kind of to be expected with long-haired guys and or gals. You've got some decent little shoulder joints there. They're not too stiff. You got some upper bicep rotation, double jointed arms that are pinless, of course. That's kind of like the trend. We don't see pin-in arms anymore. You got hand articulation and rotation. You've got, well, I guess you could say the upper diaphragm is the waist rotation here, because I don't know if she's got waist rotation. Oh, she does have waist rotation, so don't let the dress fool you. She does have waist articulation. She has upper thigh cut. You could probably see it there. Of course, she can kick forward a little bit. Would definitely kick better if there was some slits in the skirt, but sadly you don't get that. Double jointed knees. I will point this out with mine. I think it's this leg. You can kind of see the pin isn't fully pushed in, so of course that's something I can easily fix on my own time. You've got ankle articulation. As far as the boot swivel and stuff goes, you've got ankle rotation, which actually is a weird mold, I'm not gonna lie, especially when you take into consideration that like the lower legs aren't exactly the same color as the shin piece here that rotates, let alone the rest of the dress. It is a little bit of a odd thing to think about there, but I do find it kind of nice that the dress kind of pushes up in to the like ab articulation, so you can kind of get a little bit more of a kick there, but it hinders the waist ability. So I guess you could take with that what you will, but Nikki Cross is fairly solid. I won't hate the figure, because realistically it's just a little bit of modifications and that figure will probably pose pretty okay. But will I end up doing that? We'll have to see. If anything, the next piece here that we've got up for discussion is this Uncle Howdy, and well, of course, Uncle Howdy does come with two accessories, or well, I guess you could say he comes with two accessories, as I don't really know, in all honesty, if that jacket piece is supposed to be removable or not. But the jacket does come off, and I will say it is a bit odd, because like the jacket itself kind of reminds me of like the Ultimate Edition one in the sense, because of how the arms are. But there's no bare arms to this Uncle Howdy, unlike his Ultimate Edition counterpart. So take with that what you will. But this jacket nonetheless is really cool. You've got a lot of nice detail up in here as far as like the scaly looking pattern goes. It definitely gives off a nice feel texture wise. I can't really complain too much about this jacket. And of course, he does also have a nice little hat, which I want to say is the Ultimate Edition hat too. Though I will say, I think the Ultimate Edition one is painted up a little bit better than this one here. That could also just be mine. So I don't want to discourage you from, you know, how good this hat actually does look, because it looks pretty decent. Got a little bit of silver missing from that like little button there, though. I will like mention that, but nice little solid hat all around. Toss that there. See you later. Goodbye on the hat. Let's get into this Uncle Howdy first and foremost, and I will say, I do kind of like the way this mask looks. Now, don't get me wrong, the hair itself could probably use like a little bit of a dry wash in it or something like that, but I like the more almost ghostly tone that this one gives off. It's like a very light blue, maybe almost like a grayish color as far as the mask goes. It just looks really solid there. Will I do a comparison with the Ultimate Edition heads, because those are a bit more just gray, so you can see the differences there. I will probably do that as long as I remember, but you can definitely see what I mean here as far as the jacket arms go. It's literally like the Ultimate Edition jacket arms, but there is no skin tone here to hide the jacket arms from being a separate mold, because they stay in the figure, unlike the Ultimate Edition. Not the biggest problem. My big like gripe here with it though is, why does it look like he's wearing a tank top if he's not, you know, like that is just a bit weird. But you got the nice silver pattern here on the figure. Some nice waist articulation there too. I will say that's pretty nice and smooth. But the pants design themselves are pretty much the Ultimate Edition pants, but just blacked out. There's like no checker pattern or anything there. Legs are actually posing pretty well too. Honestly, damn, that's some pretty good leg articulation, boy. God damn. But you got some decent little boots here, just plain black, and yeah, you know, like that kind of pretty much sets the Uncle Howdy there in all intenses and purposes. It's just blacked out. Quite literally, it's just all blacked out. You got little bits of silver detail. You got the mask detail. Of course, you've got the Bray glove here, because he doesn't wear the hurt heel glove. He wears the glove that says Bray, is like a little memento to his brother who passed away, of course. All around, I don't really have anything bad to say much about this Uncle Howdy, actually. I really don't think I do. Maybe the torso piece here could be a little bit better, you know? Maybe, like, make it more of a solid piece. But maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just me. As far as articulation goes, the head scan can move around quite a bit, though the hair is a bit of a hindrance there. The shoulders move around quite well, as you can pop them in and out, rotate them, do whatever you need. The upper bicep moves pretty well, and so don't both sides of the double jointed arms candidate. Look at him flexing there in that jacket. You've got some hand articulation, though that's a little stiff on my end. I can't complain too much there though, no diddy. And you got some wrist rotation as well as waist rotation. You got some decent little ab crunch there, not too stiff but not too loose either, just the way most people like it. Again, no diddy. You've got some pretty decent leg movement here, as he can kind of do some decent splits, hit a nice little super kick. The upper thigh rotates quite well, no issues there, as you've been seeing for the past minute now. The double jointed knee bends pretty clean, and yeah, everything else is moving around quite nice, including the ankle articulation and rotation. So honestly, this Uncle Howdy might be the sleeper of this 3-pack. I'm not even gonna lie. Just based off of that little bit alone, whew, that Uncle Howdy might actually be worth, well, not the whole 3-pack, but he might be the most posable out of this whole 3-pack, hands down. Right now, I'm just gonna say that. But of course, now we've got our big beefy boy finally back in the Elite Series line. We've got our Rowan to go after, and well, of course, he comes with the most accessories out of all 3 of these guys, or well, out of the 2 guys and 1 gal. You've got 3 different accessories here. First thing I want to look at is this mallet, and it's just purely because of the sad fact that it's a little warped. I'm sure if you sit there, you have something holding it down in place for a long period of time, it'll kind of start to retake its shape. As you can kind of see, it's not warping so much, but because of how it sat in the package, probably because they had one of those things around it, it's a little warped. But it does say help on both sides. It doesn't have the Wyatt 6 ring on both ends though, so no red ring on both sides. I want to say that's actually accurate though. You've got the brown handle, nothing on the top of the mallet, but it does have some little textures here nearby the handle, and the handle itself is a completely different texture compared to the, I guess you could say the stem or the neck of the mallet itself. So really nice solid piece there, quite hefty too, as you can hear. But on top of that, we've got this really nice jacket, and I will say, when I opened this package up, it smelled like paint thinner. It smelled like some sort of sealer or something. I don't know what I was smelling, but it was mainly radiating off of this jacket. So just some notes there. Maybe let this air dry a little bit, just in case you smell something a little unfamiliar. Maybe it could have been a plasticky smell, and I don't work in a plastic factory anymore, so I'm not used to that. Yes, fun fact, I used to work in a plastic factory. Not a plastic factory for this stuff, but a plastic factory for medical supplies and stuff like that. Either way, really solid jacket here though. I love the textures of the white fur. The brown leather looks really nice. Got some nice little sculpted details like the buttons there, though I will say, unless they aren't painted, would have been a nice detail to make all those buttons silver. Would have popped really, really nice, here on the front, and how they made these buttons silver right there. Just really, really would have helped the back of the jacket pop a bit more, but maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just me. But of course, the thing I'm the most excited about here when it comes to this new Rowan figure, we've got the updated, well, you could have said sheep mask, but he is no longer the sheep. He is now the rambling rabbit of the Wyatt family. You've got the white fur texture here with the creepy face. I'm assuming that's blood meant to be in the sideburns, the beard thing, hair. I do just really like the way this looks all around. The paintbrush details and everything are really nice and solid. It's a pretty solid mold too. A little bit of give to it, but it's not You're not bending these much. If you are, expect it to break. And that's all I can really say. I just really like this though. I can't lie. It is super nice. I also love the little pink detail on the nose there. Didn't even realize that at first. But it is definitely a nice attention to detail. And now, of course, when it comes to this Rowan all around itself, I will say first and foremost, I do really like this head scan. Now, of course, oh wait, actually, let me zoom in on this head scan, because why do the lips look super pink? Maybe it's just me, but those lips look like that upper lip looks a little pink to me. I don't know, maybe that's just me on the camera end of the ordeal, and because it don't even really look that bad in person, so maybe that's just like a detail the camera is picking up on in itself. But I want to say this is a reuse Rowan head scan. We've seen this quite a few times as far as basics, and at least one time as far as the elites go. Nice bald head, nice big bushy red beard, got the grimacing snarl face there, looking like he's about to rip your head off, and I love every second of that. The head scan is definitely probably the peak of this figure right now, and I only say it like that because I'm not the biggest fan on this torso choice, though I will say Rowan is a big beefy guy, so maybe it's not the torso choice I don't like here. Maybe it's kind of like the lower legs. A nice unique sculpt here, but the legs are a little hard to pose around. I will say that, he is not throwing a nice big boot anytime soon. He might kick you in the gut, but I want to say Rowan's at least known for being able to swipe his leg up and kick you in the face, if you get what I mean. And it's kind of hard to make that pose out here. At least the leg mold itself isn't too bad. I will say the height is fairly accurate in my opinion. It doesn't look terrible there. But the knees, brother, the knees, holy beheebie-jeebies, these knees are fucking hard as shit to pose. But other than that, the detail on these pants is pretty incredible. I do love the way that looks. You've got the black shoes there, which are, its own separate mold. You get some rotation out of that, but there is no lower leg rotation here on this Rowan, which is a bit disappointing. I will put it like that. At least you get some lower ankle articulation though, but fuck me, mate. Why can't we get some pants rotation here? Were you afraid that it fucked the mold up a little too much, but yet you could do it for Nikki Cross? Whack. Anyway, formula aside, I don't hate on the formula. I wish the legs posed a little bit better for my liking at least. But the big thing here, at least for me, is the fact that we've got all this tattoo detail here for the first time in Elite figure form. Of course, I want to say there was a basic from way back in 2019 or whatever, a little bit before he got released, where you could see some of this tattoo detail, but this is the first time we've gotten a Rowan with tattoo details in Elite form, so keep that in mind at how special this moment is here, because we'll probably never fucking see it again. I'm not gonna lie. Let's be honest, they barely used the Wyatt6 decently on TV. I only say it like that, not hating completely, but I feel like they could have put them in more storylines by now. There could have been a lot more to the Wyatt6 by now, and the fact that we've got the MFTs beating them for the tag titles, and then they just kind of faded away into irrelevancy. Where have they been the past number of weeks? I don't know. Why was their main focus just the tag division? I don't know. That's the problem. But 25 minutes deep in this review, well, more or less 24 minutes and 31 seconds as of speaking, we finally got all three of these figures done as far as everything goes. I pretty much pointed out all the articulation issues with Rowan. He moves just about as decent as the Uncle Howdy, just not as good. And with all that being said, well, I don't have too much else to say, so why don't we bust out some of the action figures I do have for some action figure comparisons. Now, I'm going to keep the camera rolling, so hopefully you guys hear me well. But if not, might be. But I will get the Uncle Howdy and stuff like that out. So then that way you guys can see how different this Uncle Howdy mask is compared to everything. And well, first things first, because I don't have a Nikki Cross figure, we'll kind of just take a little examination of Alexa Bliss there. We've got the Uncle Howdy Ultimate Edition here. Let's just kick some of his stuff forward. Maybe move the Uncle Howdy to the side there. There you go. Look at that thing. I feel like that's a pretty nice shot right there to show you how different the Ultimate Edition and the Ultimate Edition and Elite counterparts are. Of course, and then we've got, because I don't have any official release of Rowan anymore because my first Elite Rowan broke, we've got this custom Elite Rowan that I've had in my collection since probably about the dawn of time, aka about like 2015 or so, whenever the first Elite figures of the Wyatt family came out, because I used to own all three of them. Let's just have another little fun fact in there. I used to own all three of them, and now I just own the Luke Harper Brody Lee Elite. I took the rubber tank top off of it though, gave him a black tank top. I think it looks a hell of a lot better. But with that being said, of course, I would love to go back and try to get that Bray Wyatt and that Rowan just to put them up on the shelves with that Brody Lee. Talk about greatness, right? Especially for a little display, but excuse me if you heard me burp there, might be. But just looking at everything here, we've got Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross. Alexa Bliss probably being the first iteration of what Sister Abigail could have been for the Fiend / the Wyatt family, like storyline in general. Just really nice like little looks here. You've got the more normal chick, and then you've got the psyched out chick. This is essentially what Alexa Bliss could have been if she wound up in the psych ward or some shit. Who knows? Kind of just weird to think that this would actually probably be a pretty decent tag team if they, would put Alexa Bliss in with the Wyatt Six and just do something that the fans wanted to do. Because I feel like the fans, or at least people I know, have been clamoring for that for a minute now. Just put Alexa Bliss in the group. What are you guys doing? I don't feel like it's as hard as they make it sound. But then, let's get into this Uncle Howdy and, the Ultimate Edition compared to the UE. You can kind of tell it's almost like they kept the same sculpt from the Ultimate Edition, just converted it into an Elite. Because it almost looks identical. But of course the Ultimate Edition has the butterfly joints and stuff like that. And as I mentioned, the checkered pattern pants there definitely make for a different sculpt here. But you've still got like the assless chaps look nonetheless. So I don't really know how to take the pants. But yeah, the big thing here is the mask. And well, you can tell the same blue here was used for like the eyebrows and stuff here. But this one is given a more like ghostly appearance, is where this one I feel like is more original to how it looks on TV. Plus the hair is definitely a bit more better, as it actually has the like black wash I was talking about in the hair, so it actually doesn't look just so plain. Kind of like how the Dexter Lumis Elite hair kind of looks on the mask, if I remember correctly. Because I want to say his own hair is like a dirtyish blonde, but all the like blonde is more of like that color and not like a dirty blonde, which is weird, but that's for you guys to determine. Now, of course, we also got this Rowan, which If anything, I'm mainly just gonna compare the bearded head scans here, which honestly, if I'm just gonna be fair, I like the first one a bit better. I just like the way it looks. If they took the true effects on this, put it over here with this beard shape and stuff, this is personally gonna be my favorite Rowan scan, but I do really still enjoy this one nonetheless. I think if anything for me, it's just, well, maybe now it's two things, because why does this one look like he's kind of looking off to the side? I don't know. But this one, he's not like showing as much teeth and shit as where this one, he's showing a lot of teeth. And thankfully, this one just doesn't look bad, at least on my end. But a lot of head scans nowadays that show teeth in it, the scans tend to like suck half the time. Like, what was it? The Elite, whatever, Kofi Kingston in the like flower pattern gear? I had to buy 2 of those. Mind you, I was fine with the first one because I didn't really care much about the head scan in the first place. I was just going to end up head swapping it with a different Elite. But then the foot broke, so I had to buy a second one. And yeah, it just kind of shit the bed from there. But honestly, on that note, a half an hour later, I've already wasted enough of your guys' time, so we're not going to do a final pose today. But if you guys have been enjoying it, maybe you guys should leave a like. But we'll get into that kind of stuff by the end. Of course, we're going to rank this set on a scale of 1 to 10. Rank all the figures on a scale of 1 to 10. And of course, first and foremost, we did start off with the Nikki Cross. So I feel like it's only right to go with the Nikki Cross first. And well, in this case, the Nikki Cross is a fairly solid figure nonetheless. I can't say I'm hating on it by any means. I just will say it does suck to see a figure get so hindered by a rubber accessory that is built onto the figure. Now, there is probably a way you can remove that, so then that way you can modify it without having to worry about like cutting the figure up and stuff like that. But it's just also one of those things where what will it take for something like this to eventually get made in a cloth format for the future of Nikki Cross Elites based off of this look? Will we actually ever see another Nikki Cross Elite based off this look? Who the hell knows? So this could become a rare gem in its own right. A $75 set, about $80 after shipping and stuff. You'll probably end up seeing this figure cost a good majority of the pack on its own. Probably at least a good $45, I would assume, just because of how unique it is. But the skirt itself might hinder that price point down, so who knows exactly what might be the most valued figure here. But that Nikki Cross I could definitely see, just because of how often they give us Nikki Cross figures. I could see that one costing you quite a pretty penny. But speaking of another one that's going to cost you quite a pretty penny, let's go over to the Rowan now. Just going to skip straight over onto them as we're kind of talking through, and we'll rank them all individually. That Rowan is pretty decent. I don't hate on it at all. It could definitely be a lot better, maybe, in my opinion. The legs itself just look a bit odd. Maybe it's the torso choice where it just looks a little bit too oversized. But in my opinion, it doesn't look bad because he is a big, beefy dude. And he does stand pretty well in comparison to the Uncle Howdy Elite, and I'd say in comparison to the Ultimate Edition as well. This honestly might be one of the best scaled Rowans out there that you're going to find that's modernized, where it's got double jointed arms and stuff of that nature. And will we ever see another Rowan release? I hope so, because I want some retro Wyatt releases. I want some Bludgeon Brother era figures. Even if we never end up seeing the Luke Harper end of it, it would be kind of neat to at least see Rowan get a re-release on that end. Though I don't know, maybe because of Brody Lee's passing, maybe we could eventually see his likeness get bought, or gets signed under the WWE and AEW umbrella, maybe we could get Luke Harper and Brody Lee figures at the same time. I feel like that would be pretty cool. After all, we see it with Billy Gunn. Billy Gunn's getting some AEW figures. He just had WWE Elites not that long ago. Why can't we get it for Brody Lee? Let's just be honest, why can't we? But, of course, now the last piece to this puzzle, the Uncle Howdy. Honestly, I don't have anything to say really as far as the Howdy goes. It's solid, it's nice, it's basic though, and it poses the best out of all of them, which is the funny thing to think about. You've got so much attention to detail with the other two, but they lack a little bit in the articulation game. But the Uncle Howdy lacks a lot of detail, but poses the best out of them all. At least that's just my opinion. And with that being said, I'm gonna give the Nikki Cross a good solid 6 out of 10. Not a terrible figure by any means, but it could definitely be better on the aspect of posability. Like if I had to individually rank it from look, hands down, it is at least a solid 8 out of 10. There might be a few little pieces here and there that you could change around to make it look a little bit more better, a little bit fancier, I guess. But it all looks pretty solid there. You know, no big complaints other than the lower legs and the way the lower legs look and articulate. But based off of look and articulation, those are the two biggest points when it comes to an action figure, besides accessories. But accessories, she kind of gets lacked out of. She doesn't even come with an extra set of interchangeable hands. In fact, none of these guys do, which is one thing I do find kind of weird. No interchangeable hands for anybody. So, Nikki Cross gets a 6 out of 10 for that reason. The Rowan, honestly, I'm not going to rank him much better. I am going to give him a solid 7.5 though. All the details and accessories are really nice. I wish the formula was just a little bit tweaked, a little bit better. Maybe honestly, if the legs were on pin in knees and not pinless knees and the knees articulated pretty smooth, I wouldn't be as upset with it. And he could honestly get a solid 8 out of 10 from that little improvement alone. But 7.5 is where I'm going to go for this Rowan. Not terrible. Not bad at all, but we'll just have to see how he poses as far as like taking pictures and stuff like that goes. And honestly, this Uncle Howdy, he is the most solid in the whole wave in general. So this Uncle Howdy is going to get a good solid 8.5 out of 10 for me. Only reason why he don't get the 9 is because honestly, it's just basic. There's not even an extra set of hands. Going back to it, what I was saying earlier, the accessories are decent and stuff. At least he comes with accessories, and that definitely helps boost the points up a bit more here. Same thing with the Rowan. That's why he got a 7.5 out of 10 and not a solid 8 or a solid 6 or just a straight 7, because he comes with some pretty good accessories. Either way, whole set aside, if we're gonna rank it on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm gonna give it a good solid 8 out of 10. It's not a terrible release, but I will say there might be a few things about this pack where you might want to say, hold up, wait a minute, let me wait for it to hit a discounted price and then maybe go out of my way and pick it up. Like honestly, I wouldn't mind picking up a second set of this, but on a discount. So then that way I can have a Nikki Cross that won't end up getting a little roughed up and worn and torn if I decide to try to like mangle with the skirt and make it articulate better. You know what I mean? But on that note though, we do got the Dave Meltzer Star Scale still left to do. So let's try to wrap that up quickly with that, and then we can end the video on a nice little high note there on the 8 out of 10 pack here. If anything, the Nikki Cross, we gave her a good solid 6 out of 10, so I think if anything a 2.5 out of 5 does this figure some decent justice, I guess. You could say 3, but I feel like that might just be pushing it a little bit. The Rowan, I will give him a 3.5 out of 5 stars. You know, the good old Young Buck match, 1 to Young Buck match, however you want to put it. This Rowan isn't terrible. Like, it really isn't. You could probably put on a decent little banger with this Rowan, but there might be some points of articulation that make you go, brother, ew, just, you know, that I wish the formula was just a little bit better, but a 3.5 out of 5 on that 1 to Young Buck match there. Pretty solid for a Dave Meltzer star scale. And then this Uncle Howdy, we gave him an 8.5 out of 10. Maybe I ranked him a little too high there. We're giving him a good solid 3.5 out of 5 stars. Kind of on the same scaling of Rowan there as far as the Dave Meltzer scale goes, because there's not really much you can give extra. So realistically, a 3.5, maybe a 3.8 out of 5 stars works just fine for that Howdy. If anything, for me, it's mainly just the simplicity of it in the head scan itself. I'm not too big of a fan of, though I do like it. And well, with that being said, if you guys like the video, feel free to like the video. I'm sorry that it took forever to get done, but honestly, maybe that'll help me do pretty good as far as the views go. Speaking of views, if you guys would like to, you know, maybe go out of your way and check out some secondary content from me, as we do got quite a bit of interesting videos nonetheless. Like, if you go through my catalog here, we've got a how to make a Don Callis right here. I feel like that's a pretty decent little video. Maybe not a lot of people might be interested in Don Callis, but if you want Don Callis for your Fed, I feel like that might be a little solid video you can make. I actually kind of made it on the on the fly for my boy Tyler, and I decided to kind of just make it into an actual video and post it. We also got some pick fed content here. As you can see right there, we've got a tag team gauntlet match just for you guys. Pure action between 14 teams, all tornado tag. We've got 4 teams to start, and it all ends with 1 winner, you know, just really solid stuff there. We've got a lot of different stuff, realistically, if you take your time to go through and look the content, or look through the content, which I highly recommend you do. Speaking of a high recommendation, you know, if you guys could, it would warm my heart up, as we are 3 subscribers away. I said it, a solid 3 subscribers away from getting the good old 500 subs. We're almost at 500, boys. We're almost there. We are almost there. So if you guys could, at least 3 of you, if you're not subscribed, go out of your way and subscribe. What are you doing? And well, honestly, if anything, I know normally I would probably say a bunch of extra shit, but just to kind of take like a little bit of a side note here, I would like to say I appreciate all of you guys for sticking around this long, if you guys do. And even if you guys don't, I appreciate you guys just for clicking the content, even checking it out in the first place, whether you subscribe, whether you like, whether you check out any of my playlists that I have for my content, which actually, speaking of, I do have a new playlist for you guys that I have yet to announce. I was kind of waiting for this video here, but we do have all of the pay-per-views and joint shows. I'll have to edit the name of it to include the joint shows thing, but we have all of our pay-per-views / joint shows that we've done since the start of the Pick Fed here in a playlist for you guys. So feel free to check that out if you guys could. The other section I might have to fill up with some new videos now. We've got the normal Pick Fed playlist that goes in canon order from start to finish, or where we're at right now technically. And well, I'm not gonna lie, I do have to upgrade some of the other playlists here. I haven't done that in a minute, but whether you guys check all of it out, whether you guys check none of it out, whether you guys stick around, whether you do, you don't, at the end of the day, from the bottom of my heart, thank you guys for watching and just being humble, I guess you could say, because I don't get a lot of comments, but when I do, they're usually fairly positive, they're usually fairly nice, and they're worth engaging with, and I do appreciate every comment I get. So, if you guys would like to, feel free to comment. I try to read all the comments, I try to heart all the comments, I try to respond back to all the comments, even if I don't get a conversation back or whatever. I don't really care. It's just the idea that that's what I'd want if I comment on someone's channel or whatever. I want them to acknowledge the comment, you know what I mean? At least in just some way, shape, or form. That's why that heart exists, so the creator can acknowledge you. And that's what it should be about. You want the engagement, so let them know that you're reading their engagement. Simple as that, and I try to do that every time with you guys. And well, yeah, on that note, I don't have much else to say, so have a good rest of your day, night, evening, whatever the case may be. I don't know, because I'm not in your time zone, but I will say I have been enjoying this tripod a little too much for the figure reviews. It feels so freeing to have my hands out in the open. But yeah, on that note, have a good rest of your day, night, evening, all that good jazz. And just remember, at the end of the day, just try to stay defiant, I guess you could say. That's something I want to try to end the videos on with now, because I've done it a few times, and I feel like it could catch on. But, well, we'll just have to see. Either way, just remember, you guys, have a good rest of your day and stay defiant.